Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 6 of Gotham called The Spirit of the Goat. And this was, for all intents and purposes, our Halloween episode. And it certainly did a nice job of invoking that really creepy Halloween atmosphere. Our masked bad guy, Spirit of the Goat, despite having this very ridiculous name, did have a creepy look, and there was a really nice atmosphere, like that playhouse that he spent a lot of time hanging out in. Very dark, very creepy, very fitting with just the Batman atmosphere and the general grandiose craziness that is Gotham. First of all, I just want to take a moment to call all the people who, after they watched the trailer for this last week, started yelling, "Scarecrow, Scarecrow!" Yeah, you people are all idiots, and I don't like you. Remember, there are more than the 8 Batman villains that you are familiar with out there in the world, and do you honestly think they're just going to drop Scarecrow, fully formed, running around in a damn mask, this early into the first season? No, we're showing all the Batman villains before they became the mask crazies that we are used to dealing with. Sometimes I truly, truly do hate Twitter. Okay, but then again, now that I've finished mocking dumb people on social media, let's move on to this what we're dealing with in this episode. And this is really, for all intents and purposes, the big Bullock episode. And Connell Dolg, or I know I'm not saying that right, Colin Dolg. Now remember, he was the first person who was actually cast on the show, if I remember correctly. No, I'm sorry. It was actually it was a fellow who played Gordon who was cast first. Bullock was the first person they released a picture of his character. Okay, sorry about that. Well, anyway, he totally owns this episode. He is, right since the pilot, been one of the best actors on Gotham, really delivering some of the best performances of anybody we've seen so far. And I'm just loving this guy. He is a fantastic, fantastic actor, and I am so happy that they got him as Bullock, because he's really just knocking it out of the park. And what we see with Bullock here, and especially in the flashbacks, really invoke Bullock's line from the first episode, is that nice guys don't last long in Gotham. And when we see Bullock in the past, you can still see that he was very much that sort of rough around the edges guy. But he was, as his partner Dix refer to him, he was a white knight. Bullock, 10 years ago, was basically where Gordon is now. He was the guy who wanted to go out there and save Gotham. And, Dix was basically the Bullock. He was the guy who said, remember, first rule of being a cop in Gotham, no heroics. And we see how basically the years wore Bullock down. He just kind of gave in. He became a part of the system. He got with the program. And you have to imagine that Bullock is sort of realized that being a white knight, being a hero, don't amount to anything in Gotham. The best I can do is go along with the program and try and keep the city from complete and utter collapse. And if that means I can, strong arm a free sandwich out of the food cart guy now and then, and whatever, grab a few perks here just for having a badge. Well, hey, I'm a cop in the crappiest city in America. I deserve a few perks. So really, again, Bullock is basically what Gordon could become if he loses that moral center. Now, not to say that Bullock is completely far gone. Bullock is a guy who, in a lot of ways, has surrendered to the system, but he hasn't given up. Bullock does genuinely want to see people who go out there and do bad things punished. But he's just sort of accepted that there's only a certain level of which I can, dispense anything that looks like real justice. Anything above that, people like Fish Mooney and Falcone, they're untouchable. But they keep the rank and file thugs in some degree of order, so I have to go along with it. And I really like how Gordon actually gets to see that Bullock wasn't always the person that he was. I mean, he is just absolutely flabbergasted when Dix refers to Bullock as a white knight. So I think the idea that Bullock wasn't always the person that he is now is really kind of starting to dawn on Gordon. Maybe even he started to realize that Bullock, maybe he was like me in the past, or Bullock is somebody what I could become in the future. I don't think Gordon's quite there yet, but I think the seed has definitely been planted. This episode also does a really nice job. Excuse me. I think I'm coming down with a cold. Anyway, does a nice job of really showing that Bullock is a good cop. He knows this famous case really well. He has all the right instincts of a detective. He just really needs to be motivated to give a crap to actually do his job properly. And when Bullock confronts the bad guy, the therapist, at the end, it's all on him. He's the one that really succeeds in cracking this case and taking the bad guys down. He figures out what's going on his own. So this really does show that Bullock, with some work, could be a strong ally for Gordon, and eventually an ally to Batman. But he's got a long way to go. So let's see. Gordon. Well, he and Barbara do have another chat about the whole situation, and Gordon is much more explicit in spelling it out that, look, I can't tell you what's going on because this really might get you killed. Now, I like that Barbara really is much more reasonable here than I think she has been in the past, where she says, all I want for you is to let me carry half of your burden. And that's what a partner is supposed to do in a relationship. They're supposed to support you, help you, and carry your burdens. So this, I think, does a lot to really elevate Barbara in my eyes. I haven't been too fond of her so far. I mean, again, smoking weed in your cop boyfriend's apartment, not cool. And, that whole trick that she played with informing the media. Yeah, some good came out of it, but again, not exactly going along with what Gordon had wanted. And of course, we also have another scene with her and Montoya, and I like how she is I'm pretty sure that Barbara is supposed to be a lawyer. I don't think I can't remember if it's ever been explicitly said, but just that whole thing of her saying, like, I can't be seen talking to you, to me sort of says lawyer. But anyway, so Montoya shows up to warn Barbara one more time. It's like, no, Gordon is bad, get away from him, get out of Gotham, and all this other stuff. And again, it just continues to show, in my book, that Montoya is really not doing this because she's all that interested in, seeing a murderer brought to justice. She does care about Barbara. She doesn't want her to be with someone that she thinks is a murderer. But again, it just continues to read as Montoya is doing this mostly because she just doesn't like the idea of Barbara being with someone else. And remember, look at Allan and Montoya. They somehow managed to get these warrants from a judge based on a witness who's just some dude who was hanging around the docks. I mean, I can't even tell quite exactly if this guy was supposed to be a homeless person or not. But basically, some old guy who probably is an alcoholic, not exactly the most reliable of witnesses. So it just, again, it seems more example of more Allan and Montoya running around trying to put Gordon behind bars based on ridiculously flimsy evidence. I mean, they don't even have proof that Cobblepot is dead, just word on the street that he's dead. I mean, you do have to have a lot more than that. I mean, there's a reason why attorneys are big on this thing called habeas corpus, which, if I remember correctly, is basically Latin for produce or show the body. Well, ain't no body. In fact, it's kind of questionable whether or not Oswald has even been reported missing. So the idea that they could convince a judge to issue an arrest warrant based on that is just silly beyond words. And of course, this all blows up in Allan and Montoya's face at the end when Oswald has that most moment of just strolling into the police station and introducing himself. No idea how in the world he knew to be there at that exact moment, but maybe we'll find out next episode. Maybe we won't. Whatever. It was dramatically wonderful, and I loved it. And of course, this also means that Bullock now knows that Gordon lied to him, and now they all have big targets painted on them for payback from Falcone. But just the fact that the Penguin strolled into that police station full of dirty cops shows that he's basically ready to properly step back out on the stage of Gotham and basically say, like, you tried to kill me, but I'm back, and yeah, I've got friends now. And I'm not scared of you people. I'm not scared of Fish Mooney. I'm not scared of Falcone. I know this is going to bring them after me. Bring it. And let's see. I think that wraps it up for the GCPD. Since I brought him up, let's talk briefly about Penguin. We got to see more of Penguin with his mom, and yeah, Penguin's mom is pretty weird and crazy and hilarious, and I really do like her. And like everybody else, I was seriously squicked out by that scene with Penguin taking a bath in the middle of the living room, which sort of implies that somehow or other he most likely carried the bathtub out there to the living room, and then I guess they filled it up with water from the sink because I know Gotham is sort of set in an unclear time in the past, but how is that bathtub not attached to some pipes? I mean, yes, you can get bathtubs that are not, of course, but they're very old-timey, antique things. So why someone would have that in a modern apartment and continue to actually use it makes no real sense. But again, it's just one of those things that's really about atmosphere. And of course, there's also some really hilarious stuff with the Penguin going on about basically like, Mom, no, I wasn't out, hanging out with like slutty chicks, basically. So let's see. Anything else? Not a huge amount to say about what's going on with Bruce this episode, but this episode is another example of how they mentioned that the level of corruption going on in Gotham is going to be bringing out vigilantes. Well, we've already got the Balloon Man, and now here's another example of someone who is a vigilante. But here we see a contrast. Balloon Man was going after people who were like crooked businessmen, dirty cops, pedophile priests. Here, the psychologist is basically manipulating these people to go after the children of Gotham's richest people. Not people who've actually done anything bad that we know of. They were just the children of rich people. So, of course, the children of rich people are often, or can often be, douchey dicks. But then again, so can the children of middle-class people and the children of poor people. The good is really just basically trying to scare Gotham's elite. And while it's not necessarily bad because Gotham's elite is often extremely, extremely crooked, but they're just killing, and it's often implied, young people who, again, have not been shown to have done anything actually bad. And yeah, so that kind of robs the GOAT of a lot of sympathy there. But it does go to show you why, 10 years from now, when Batman is going to show up, and Charlie over at Emergency Awesome did a really nice job pointing this out, that the Gotham City PD are going to be pretty damn sick and tired of vigilantes, and unsurprisingly are not going to be oh yeah, man, Batman, sweet, we've been waiting for a guy like this. Like, no, they're going to be damn sick and tired of vigilantes and throw Batman into the pile of just crazy nutcases who've taken the law into their own hands. So let's see here. One thing I do like about the GOAT is this is again another example of showing how the little pieces of what is eventually going to become Batman are put out there. Here we see a guy, a vigilante, in a mask with points on their head, going out there and doing vigilante stuff. But again, the GOAT is really just, and I think it was even mentioned, animal imagery being invoked to scare people. But again, the GOAT's actions are just basically killing and terrorizing people who have not necessarily done anything wrong. I mean, it's effective, but all you're doing are harming basically young people whose parents are wealthy. Again, not people who are shown to have actually done anything bad. So this is basically the frightful imagery of the bat kind of aspect of Batman being put out there. Let's see. Yeah, of course we can't forget to talk about Riddler this episode. And this is the most time we've got to spend with Enigma and sort of get a little bit more insight into his character. And one thing we learn is that Enigma is absolutely awful at flirting. Now the girl he seems to be interested in, Kristen Kringle, I checked and it doesn't seem like she's anybody from the comics. I think it's just another example meant to show that a lot of people in Gotham have ridiculous names. But anyway, again, Enigma is just really bad at flirting and just does not seem to understand people. He doesn't seem to understand that people do not operate on pure logic all the time. And Riddler and Enigma is all about the logic of things. It's actually been described as people like this, one of their curses in life is that they want people to make sense. And that's kind of what is going on with Eddie and Kristen. He's like, okay, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to organize all your stuff in a way that makes total sense. It's really simple. And she's like, you idiot. I had things set up in a way that makes sense to me. I don't need you to come in here and impose your own logic on all of this. And this is just another example of Eddie Edwards' skills and intellect, him trying to share that with the world, trying to do good with that, and just having it mocked and thrown in his face, and him being treated like a freak because of it. There's Bullock constantly showing him disrespect. Is it any kind of wonder that eventually this guy is just going to crack? And as we see from his lovely coffee mug with the question mark on it, well, the road to becoming the Riddler is paved with just basic disrespect for him as a person. And oh yeah, of course we also get to see Selina pop into Wayne Manor and swipe something. I couldn't tell quite what it was, but we do see that she's figured out that Bruce is playing detective on his own. And it's certainly very interesting to wonder, like, what's going on in her head. And again, I just love Carmen, very difficult to pronounce last name, who's playing Selina here. Even though she doesn't say a word, it's all just in the looks and the way she moves when she's walking and stalking around the room. I mean, it's just really great, and I cannot wait until we actually see these two characters talk to each other, because I think that's just going to make for some really, really interesting stuff. And again, I really like the idea, and I have a feeling this is where the show is going to go, that Batman starts to learn some things like Bruce is going to start to learn some of his Batman skills, like lock picking and stealth and all this other stuff from Selina. And I just love the idea of Catwoman having been the one to have taught Batman a lot of his skills. I think that's a brilliant twist, and I really hope that's where the show is going to be going with that. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you this time around. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.